Hello and welcome to Making Munch with Mike. I'm Mike. I'm making munch. And you know what that means? That means I am cooking a sausage. Sausage. Oh, sausage. Is French for pig skin wrapped with beets. I don't know what it is. But, in a first for season 2, in an unusual move, I'm not only cooking one sausage, I'm also cooking pasta. Just a bit of pasta, because we don't have any bread. I thought about it this morning at breakfast. I was like, oh, we don't have bread, I'll throw the bread machine on and make some bread. But too much effort. Even with what I was saying the other day about bread machine, we have bread mix. We don't have the bread flour and like you got to put all the bits in together. Which honestly, the machine mixes it anyway, so it's not like I have to mix the things, I just have to measure them and put them in. But I'm not even doing that. All I'm doing is measuring the flour mix, measuring water, and yeast. 3 things, that's all it is. Put it in, turn it on. Maybe I'll turn it to dark, because I prefer if it's just a bit darker. That suits me and my desires for bread. Didn't do it. Too lazy. Couldn't be bothered. Ridiculous. Anyway, that's what's happened. So now I'm making pasta. You might be able to hear the water is reaching the boil. Put my sausage in as well. Sausage pan's not hot enough, so that's not sizzling. Doing things all out of order and real slow today. Anyway, should have just put bread on this morning. Everything would have been fine. Ah, dear. Have an assignment due this week. Assignment on Isaiah, the Word of God in Isaiah. And there's just a bit where I'm not finding resources, not finding what I want to find to say, this is what Isaiah's theology on the Word of God is. But in my sort of doing research, I found, this book sounds brilliant, a thematic approach to the book of Isaiah. So just goes through Isaiah, but only in regard to themes rather than doing it exegetically verse by verse. It's going, all right, here's your systematics based only on Isaiah. Ideal. What a brilliant book. I love it. I want it. It sounds so good, but I can't get an electronic copy from the library, and I've already spent enough on books this year. So that's something that's waiting until I'm preaching on Isaiah one day. But that means I can't access it right now for this essay. And that's all right. I figured it out. I'm just putting a footnote in saying these are the books that I would have loved to have referenced, particularly in this section. I'm talking about the systematics of Isaiah, the book. But I couldn't access them. Actually, I've left it as did not obtain it or something. I don't know. It said something like, I just wore it as like, no, I've made choices. That means that I don't get it. It's not that it's impossible for me to obtain the book, just that I haven't obtained the book. I wanted to, but I didn't want it enough that I would shell out $30-something. I'm spending $30 on a book. I spent, well, actually, retail was $80. I spent, I don't know, 75% of that, which I guess is $60. $60-ish on half a commentary on Isaiah, but I already had the first half. So, reasonable choice. Yeah. Anyway, So I do have. I spent enough money later. I also bought half a commentary on Romans, which retails 110. So I spent probably something like $80 on that one. $78, whatever. $80, $78, what's the difference? Just a bit of rounding. So, yeah, that's my trick. So let me tell you what I'm actually going to say in the essay. How's that sound? So the essay is about the Word of God in Isaiah. Like, what does Isaiah say about the Word of God? Nice. Typically, it's the proclamation by Isaiah. It's from the prophet's mouth. It's the speech is the word of the Lord, the word of Yahweh. That is what the word is. So often we talk about the Bible as the word of God, but I'm not sure what Isaiah would do with that. Would Isaiah be like, no, the word is what is spoken? Is the word just the message, the content, or is it what's written in the end and recorded? I don't think it can only be what's recorded. If you say content, then you could say it's both the speech and what's recorded. But if it's the proclamation, if it's the preaching, then we're tending a bit more towards, tough question. And I don't have resources that would maybe be interested in answering that question. And I haven't found any articles on the college library that are going direct into that. And maybe I'm just a bit silly and I've not searched the right hit words. I don't know. Maybe no one else cares about my question. That's probably a typical thing. What an interesting essay, Mike, about something no one cares about. Thanks for writing this for some reason. I think that's sometimes my feedback. But anyway. So need to figure out what I'm going to do in terms of doing some saying stuff willy-nilly out of nowhere. I think is a bit what I'm going to do, and then I'll use that to go into talking about Timothy Ward's Words of Life, and he breaks down special revelation. So not Isaiah's idea of the word of the Lord, but he's talking about special revelation, and he talks about it Trinitarianly, because, I mean, how else are you going to talk about anything? So he talks about what the Father does, what the Son does, what the Spirit does. So then I'll talk into that with Isaiah. Significant, I think, for all of this is actually the commentary I spent $80 on, the second half of Isaiah, because in the second half of Isaiah, from chapter 40 onwards, he's focused not on his contemporary exile, so first half 1 to 39, or kind of 1 to 36, something like that, focused on right now the northern kingdom just to the north of us, Israel. They've been taken away. They've been exiled, exported, taken out from their homeland. So he talks about sort of those contemporary, present, international turmoils in the first half. The second half, he talks about future turmoils, which are quite far in the future. So even he talks about Cyrus. There's some questions and discussion that I've already written about that. I think accept it. Why not? What's Oswald say? Oswald says, The burden of proof is on the people who claim Isaiah 2 or some kind of edition. There's different ways that people claim the edition. Burden of proof is on them to prove that there's a new author because the text doesn't say, now I'm this other guy coming along doing this. Or if people are taking Cyrus particularly as a note, it doesn't come across as, and this king was Cyrus, Prince of Persia. It just, his name is Cyrus. It's just in the poem. And that's another thing about it. It's in poetry. I haven't included this in my argument, maybe I should have. But poetry is pretty hard to mess with. Pretty hard to just throw something in. Can't just insert a word. It ruins the rhythm, it ruins the whole flow. So, yeah. So, anyway, what I was going to say about that. Cyrus, mentions of Cyrus, strong argument for inscripturation. Like, there's an assumption there that it's written down. It's not just Isaiah's proclamation, but it's recorded. But I guess the question is, Isaiah 40, is that the right chapter? I don't know. There's a second commissioning. Is that sort of Isaiah writing a commissioning service for the person who will, in 150 years or so time, take up his words and start preaching them? So then the word of God is preached, it's recorded, but recorded in order to be preached again. I don't know. I'm wondering if I'm going to tend towards it is the message because of a verse in 1 Peter, I think it's 1 Peter 1, 24 and 25, or 23 and 24, somewhere there, end of the chapter, where Isaiah 40 is quoted, and it says that message is the gospel. So maybe the word of the Lord is the gospel, and that's the answer. But then what is the gospel? Is it the proclamation of the king, or proclamation of salvation, or proclamation of the saving king? I don't know. Because particularly for Isaiah, there's inclusion of judgment. Judgment's a pretty key part of it. So the king who will judge. I don't know. Maybe it's the announcement of God's rule. Well, I've got today and tomorrow and Friday to finish writing this essay. Whew. We'll see how we go. Anyway, this has been Making Lunch with Mike. I'm Mike. I've just made my munch, and I hope you enjoy your lunch as well. And I will catch you tomorrow with maybe better stuff in my mind about Isaiah, but I won't bore you with it. Catch you later.